Hey there, everybody. Welcome to Unlocking the Power of DAFs. Really appreciate everybody being here. If you would please say hello in the chat, I'll get us started. I'm saying hello from Kennesaw, Georgia, a little bit outside of Atlanta. Tell us where you're from, what organization. We really appreciate you being here. We're going to talk a little bit today about donor advised funds and how to get some of those donations. So very excited about this today. Over on the right-hand side, that is where you can drop questions in the chat as we go along. This is where we'll drop poll questions, that kind of thing, maybe handouts. So be looking on the right for things that get dropped in there. Kelly, Stephanie, Dawn, thanks for being here. Amanda, good to see you as well, part of our For Good Cause team. This will be recorded. I should get the recording out by Monday. I am taking off for a wedding this weekend, so I will try to get that out to everybody by Monday so that you can share it with other folks in your office. We'll just start with some introductions. I'm Ronald Pruitt. I'm the president and founder of For Good Cause. If you're not familiar with For Good Cause, we are a fundraising platform for small to mid-sized nonprofit, and our specialty is helping our clients build reliable, recurring revenue through monthly giving. I'm really excited that you can do donor advised fund giving, and that those gifts can be monthly. So very excited about demoing that today. If you are unfamiliar with For Good Cause, you want to kind of take something back to your office about us, I'm going to drop a little one-pager on the right there in the handouts download. Feel free to download that and take that with you. We have a great expert here today from our DAF Pay partner, Chariot, Talia Gill. And she's going to walk us through everything DAFs and how we're going to get all these gifts. I think there's like 250 billion out there just kind of sitting around that we want to get access to. Is that right?
Yeah, just about.
All right. I'm going to hand it over to you, let you kind of keep driving here and ask questions as we go along, guys. We'll have some time for Q&A at the end, or maybe we'll jump in as we go. So
thanks, Ronald. I appreciate it. Hi, everyone. Nice to meet you. I'm Talia. I'm from the partnerships team at Chariot. I'll get into our mission a bit farther along, but we are the donor advised fund payments company. As Ronald said, I would love for this not to be just me talking for an hour. So please, if you have any questions, throw them in the chat. I can really, talk about anything anyone wants, but excited to get into it. Thank you, Ronald, for putting this together and for hosting and for being a good partner. Moving along, just want to walk through our agenda a bit. So we'll do some introductions. Ronald will introduce For a Good Cause. I'll introduce Chariot. We'll talk all about DAFs, kind of the what, then the who, and also like why they're important right now. We'll talk specifically about DAF Pay on For a Good Cause, and then just strategies that you can integrate into your general fundraising kind of day to day. And then we'll end with a Q&A. But as I said, definitely okay with doing some questions throughout. So getting right into it, Chariot is kind of we're on a mission to accelerate philanthropy. That's what we say. We focus, most particularly on donor advised fund payments, but then we also do a bunch of other stuff. We focus on education, so that looks like kind of the presentation that we're doing now. We also present at conferences all over the U.S. We've done a bunch of independent research. So we have a DAF Fundraising Report that focuses on donor advised fund trends and strategies from the lens of nonprofits. We focus on promotion as well, just kind of getting the word out about DAFs and donor advised funds. We co-sponsor DAF Day, which is, we like to think of it as like a holiday for donor advised funds. It's a giving day, right, for donor advised funds. And then we also have our technology side. So that's DAFpay, which we're going to be talking about today. And then also our disbursements tool, which is kind of a way that we deliver DAF funds to nonprofits with a single data file in a completely data-rich format. So that's Chariot. And then we're really excited. I don't know, Ronald, if you want to jump in and talk about really why we're speaking today. But For a Good Cause, really excitingly, is bringing DAF Pay to their donation forms as a core payment option.
Yeah, over the last, especially the last maybe year and a half, I get questions. How do I take DAFs online? Am I going to be able to do this ever? Is this a thing? Are you guys doing anything in the DAF world? So we found Chariot and love the ease of which donors are able to give through donor advised funds online. And we've installed that into For Good Cause. For Good Cause clients have that currently, and we'll be doing a demo of that later. We just like the simplicity of it and just how easy it makes it. So
Great. Yeah. And it's really, I mean, it's always wonderful to have good fundraising platform partners that are dedicated to kind of maximizing their nonprofits. So that's great.
that's what we're doing.
Moving right along, I'd love to start with a poll just to kind of see where we're at. I'm pretty sure if you click there we go, the poll's up there. So question 1 would be, do you know what a donor advised fund is? Simple yes or no. Let's see. Okay. All right. Seems to be a little bit half and half, mostly yes. That's great. I mean, I'm sure I'm speaking to a bunch of fundraisers, so it won't be surprising to tell y'all that 2-3 years ago, those numbers were so different. It was like, it feels like in the past second, everyone suddenly learned about donor advised funds. And then a second question, if we can go to the next one. How comfortable on a scale of 1 to 5 would you be explaining donor advised funds to a donor? So a donor comes to you, says, I want to give in a smart way. How comfortable are you telling them about donor advised funds and all the nuances? Okay, some more spread out. We have 3. So most folks are at a 1 or a 2, it seems. A 1. So not as confident. Okay. I'm glad. That is what I hope to change today. Great. And then just before also, if we have one more time for a question, if some people just want to throw in the chat, what's the first word you think of when I say donor advised funds? Just so I get like the attitude that people have towards them right now. Okay, Ronald said rich people. Fair. Hope that easy for donor to manage. I like that, Kelly. Hope to debunk that. Or the first one, the rich people, not the easy. Haha, same. Okay. Family trust, sure. Thanks, Christina. Okay. So we're seeing that it's for rich folks. It's something that you do. It's kind of similar to family foundation, stocks and bonds, sure. We'll get into that. Great context. So let's lead right along. Let's just get into understanding DAFs, what it really is, kind of the soups and nuts. So a donor advised fund is a tax advantage account for charitable giving. This is kind of my favorite depiction. This is how I think of it. You have the donor, the DAF provider that sits in the middle, and then the nonprofit that gets the grants. And a donor will donate funds or, as Ronald said in the chat, any kind of asset. So it could be appreciated securities or more complex assets. One of my colleagues says that he knows someone who once donated a yacht to a DAF, so it can really be anything. The DAF provider will invest those funds, and then the donor can designate grants from the DAF provider to the nonprofit. And the nonprofit will receive it as a cash gift. Once you donate your funds to a donor advised fund, that's irrevocable. So you donate to a DAF, the money from the DAF has to go to a nonprofit. It can't be taken out. No takesies, backsies, as we like to say. And then if we're going to talk about the benefits, just kind of at a glance of DAFs for donors, we can think about it in 3 ways. So one, it's streamlined. For the individual donor, instead of kind of at year end gathering all the different receipts of where you gave, all your bank statements, you have every kind of gift you've given in one place. You can go to your donor advised fund portal and just say, okay, these are the 30 charities I donated to this year. I have it in a single place, easy to track, easy to manage. It really kind of helps set accountability for the donors as well. So instead of kind of just on a one-off basis saying, okay, I'm going to take X amount from this month's paycheck and give it to a charity at the beginning of the year or whenever kind of you fund your donor advised fund, you say, okay, I'm going to dedicate this percentage of my weekly, monthly, annual income to charity. That's where it's going to go. I can set up kind of monthly recurring funds to my donor advised fund. And it really helps you kind of pre-commit those funds that whenever you do go to give, you have them sitting there. And then tax savings. So this is, I think this is kind of the association a lot of folks make with rich people for DAFs, which I get, though we'll see the statistics don't really support that fully anymore. So, and this is really for most people who are making big gifts to the DAFs. It doesn't apply. I mean, I'm a DAF holder, and kind of this kind of thing doesn't apply to me. Because most folks aren't really going to hit the standard deduction anyway. Donations to a DAF count as an itemized deduction. So if you're going to hit your itemized deduction limit, that's great, and you'll get a write-off that way. But otherwise, it's really just a way to streamline accountability, organize it. And then if you do happen to have assets or stocks that are worth a bunch, you can donate them to your DAF, and you won't have to pay capital gains on it or anything like that. I also like to talk about something we think about as like the phenomenon of pre-commitment when it comes to donor advised funds. So this is a metaphor that my colleague formulated, but he says having a DAF is like going into a store with a gift card instead of cash. So if you go into a clothing store and you have kind of $500 that you made that week through work, my mindset would probably be like, I'm going to spend as little of this as possible because I worked really hard and I want this $500 to stay with me for as long as possible. But if I, at the beginning of the year, set aside a gift card for $500 that I could only spend at this one store, when I walk into that store, instead of kind of being annoyed at having to spend my money, I'm excited. This is money I set aside for this really worthy purpose of this store. I'm excited to give it. So we think about kind of making a donation as having two key decisions. One is how much should I give? And two is, do I want to give it to which org? And one of those donations is exciting. Which amazing org can I get to support? And the first decision, how much should I part with? That's an annoying decision. Like as humans, we don't like to part with money. That's kind of just the way of the world. So what DAF giving helps get done is you fund your DAF. It's kind of part of your yearly financial decisions. And then when it comes to making a decision of how can I support or which organization should I support, you don't have to kind of do that unsavory or less fun decision. So that just, it helps create like less friction. And as we'll see statistically, bigger gifts. And then as kind of, we'll get into these stats again more generally, but there really isn't one type of DAF donor. There isn't three types of DAF donors, despite these boxes. It's millions of people in the US at this point. But if we're going to think about certain traits that DAF donors have, starting from the left to the right, you have the organizer. So that's honestly what I think of myself as. This isn't typically someone who's doing it really for the big tax savings. It's someone who is kind of purposefully trying to organize and maximize their giving. So organize, have all their giving done in one place, and maximize. It's one, invested in the market, and two, kind of setting down and say, this is the amount I'm going to give at the beginning of the year, which just being organized helps you stay on track. Funding and using, it's annual kind of turnaround. You fund your DAF on an annual basis. You give grants from your DAF kind of pretty often. Something else that we're seeing as a really kind of popular model is DAFs as an employee benefit. So this is something my company does, but similar to kind of 401k match or an HSA match. Every month, my company will match a donation into my donor advised fund the same way other companies match a 401k contribution. So that's another kind of asset for the organizer DAF donor. Then you have the optimizer DAF donor. So this is typically folks who are getting the most tax benefit. And this is if you have like if you are selling a house, or you got a big bonus, or there's some sort of like major stock compensation, that's kind of, we're thinking about those donors here, and they'll donate a bunch to their donor advised fund and either meet and exceed their standard deduction or just write off the capital gains. And then a builder. So this is folks who are really thinking about donor advised fund as an alternative to a private foundation, either because there was some windfall financial event, they received a massive inheritance, something like that. And this is, I know, Christina, you had said family trust. I think the builder kind of falls into that category of the whole family plan giving. It's typically donor advised fund that probably has years of legs on it. And and it's given the funds are distributed kind of maybe in bigger increments, less often.
Talia, I really like that employee benefit idea that you guys have there, because imagine
Yeah.
a nonprofit has a lot of corporate partners. Imagine if you can get up in front of those corporate partners and get in front of those people and say, hey, employees, this is a benefit that your corporation offers, and our donation page makes it easy for you to make those DAF disbursements, and you'll get a match on that, or that's part of, your corporate, structure and philanthropy that's going on there. I think that's those two things could work really well together. So.
Yeah, Ronald, I totally agree. I think like one of the best things about donor advised funds is that it really it brings kind of it makes giving a central part of your like financial structure, which I think is really appealing to folks who are more savvy about their finances. And those folks also tend to be wealthier and make bigger gifts. Oh, Allison just said she can't hear Ronald. Like you couldn't hear what he just said?
Can you hear me now? I will say my internet is a little slower today. I'm working on a backup intermittent device, so Talia's going to be the lead today.
Okay, well, I'll summarize for anyone who didn't hear. Ronald just pointed out that it could be an asset for nonprofits to have corporate partners, to appeal to those corporate partners and talk about kind of corporate matching into a donor advised fund, and then point towards DAFpay on their form and say, match your employees' donor advised fund, and then direct them to our DAFpay button. And it's just a way to kind of integrate DAF giving into corporate life and kind of financial planning. So moving along, I want to give kind of the context of why we're talking about donor advised funds right now. Like they've always kind of been a smart tool for giving. If we look at like a snapshot of 2025, they are really especially important and impactful right now. Like if we look at these numbers, they currently kind of make up $250 billion in assets, and that's, you can see a 5x change over the past 10 years. And then in terms of the grants, so that's kind of gifts being granted out of the donor advised funds, that in 2023, which is the last full year that we have data, hovered around 55 billion, and yeah, that's a 6x change over the past 10 years. So this is much more kind of increasingly popular way for folks to give, whether they're small or large donors, as we'll see. It's really, I mean, I don't know if anyone saw, but GoFundMe just opened a donor advised fund for the everyday person. So it really is for everyone. And even if we're looking at the first results from 2024, we see Fidelity and DAF Giving 360, which is formerly Schwab Charitable. Those are two of kind of the biggest commercial donor advised funds. And those, they were already worth kind of $15 billion and $8 billion respectively. And even donor advised funds that are that big are increasing in size by 25%, which that's just a crazy number to see, that even these massive DAFs are increasing by so much. And then you have kind of new tech forward DAFs like DAFI just increasing by hundreds of percentages in terms of size, and just really, really gaining traction with everyone. Yeah, and then just more on that. So if we look at this chart on the right, this is from the 2025 DAF Fundraising Report, which is a report led by Chariot. I said at the beginning, but it's nonprofit research all about DAF strategies and kind of statistics. So DAF revenue growth is actually kind of outpacing non-DAF revenue growth, to the point where even if non-DAF revenue growth for nonprofits decreases, the increase in DAF revenue actually offsets those decreases. So if you look from 2024, non-DAF revenue growth actually decreased by 1%. That's that kind of small orange red box on the right. And DAF revenue growth increased by 30%. So that's like, and it really is enough, even though it's not a majority of giving or anything, it's enough to make up for the fact that non-DAF revenue is going down. DAF revenue is there. And 80% of nonprofits in the study saw DAF revenue growth in 2024. Yeah, and then just once again, even though it's like a bright spot in the sea of other DAF or other giving revenue sources might be decreasing, DAFs kind of stay stagnant, but really for most continue to increase. So if you look, like the median is 30% for DAF, -1% for non-DAF, and even you go to the 25th percentile, it's 6% for DAF, -6% for non-DAF. So even for folks where this isn't as drastic of a change, it still is pretty drastic. Like those numbers are pretty different. This is just another kind of a snapshot of the other findings from the DAF Fundraising Report, and I'll share that more towards the end. But if we say who uses a DAF, so I've hinted this, I think, throughout, but it's really for all donors these days, and we see these statistics being more and more kind of telling of the fact that it's all donors, it's not just major donors. So yeah, 69% of DAF gifts, so far over half, are below 1K. So we think about DAF gifts as just like yielding these major donors, which they totally do. But when you consider DAF revenue, you should really be considering your entire donor base, not just major donors. And then 92% of DAF gifts are below 5K. So that's just on that. When are DAFs used? So yeah, DAFs are growing at every level. And yeah, our study isolated that the two biggest kind of growing segments of DAF gifts are over 25K and under $100. So that kind of gives you a little bit more into those big numbers. So we still have these huge gifts from donor advised funds. I'm not saying that those aren't true for the DAF industry, but again, like these $20, $50, $75 gifts from kind of one-time or first-time donors, those do happen from donor advised funds. And then how DAFs are used. So DAFpay, which is kind of Chariot's tool that now For a Good Cause has integrated. Now DAFs are a core payment option, and they're really just kind of can be far more a part of everyday giving. And brings DAF giving to all channels. It's not just for your donors who know about them. It's for anyone on your page. Great. And moving along, I don't see any questions in the chat. Just a reminder, if you have any questions at any point, please feel free to throw them in, especially right now. But if not, I think we'll throw it over to Ronald for a demo.
Yeah, I'm excited to kind of show how this works on For Good Cause. I'm going to share my screen. So you guys should see that I'm sitting on the donation page for our favorite fictional charity here at For Good Cause, the Bruce Wayne Bat Sanctuary. This is what we use to do a lot of demos to prospects and other folks on webinars. So kind of think of this as like an everyday donation page for a nonprofit. It's a simple, easy, one-step giving process. And we're just going to show how easy it is to make a DAF gift via a donation page like this. So on For Good Cause, donors can give via their DAF either a monthly donation, recurring monthly donation, or a one-time donation. We're going to round up to help offset any processing fees right there. As I scroll down to the payment section, you see that donor advised fund and DAFpay is just another payment option. Just like Google Pay, Apple Pay, bank transfer, credit card, it's just another thing that donors will see, and that lets them know that, oh, I have the ability right here and now as I'm making this gift to pull that from my donor advised fund. So I'm going to select that. Click continue. It's going to pop a little modal here from Chariot, our partner. And I'm going to click to continue. And this is the step where the donor is basically going to look for, where their DAF is parked, their financial partner. And there are thousands of these. Sometimes you might think of community foundations are a lot of times where things are, people have their DAFs parked and that kind of stuff. There are thousands of providers in here. We're going to log into Fidelity as our example here. And then it's going to tell me as a DAF holder what my balance is. Talia, I'm sure this helps to bring larger gifts when they know what their balance is, and it's right there in front of them.
Yeah, totally. Like you see it and you're like, wait, I have so much money that I can give to the Bruce Wayne Bat Foundation right now. I was thinking I was going to give $1,800. Let's give $100.
Sure. And then I know that certain providers have certain minimum donation amounts, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, and you guys have built in a really nice way that if that system tells me that it is too little, I can always change my amount right here with a single click. I can change my amount that I'm going to donate, and even when I get to this step, I click donate, and that's it. You get pushed to the For Good Cause thank you screen. You get your transaction ID. You can print this for your records. You get an automatic email receipt, just like you would with any other donation, credit card, Google Pay, whatever it may be. The donation goes into your For Good Cause records, just like any other donation with payment method, donor advised fund. Super simple, easy stuff there. That there's nothing complicated about that. That's why we integrated it. It's super easy. And I think you're going to tell us kind of how you can promote this and get more people to use this. So how are we going to get people into making DAFs?
Yeah,
There's a question. Is there a question? Let's see.
I think Amanda just threw in
Oh yeah,
the article.
we have a very in-depth guide on the For Good Cause blog about DAFs and DAF pays and a lot of strategies on that, which I'm sure are going to that's a nice complement to what you're going to go over in the rest of this presentation. So,
Yeah, thanks for that, Ronald. It really looks great. And just to talk about kind of key benefits of DAFpay on For Good Cause. So, and Ronald went over all of these. But yeah, we can find more DAF donors from the very first donation. So if you've dealt with donor advised funds, you know that one of the kind of struggles is that not all DAFs share full donor information. With DAFpay, you'll always receive the name, the email, and the mailing address of your donor. We'll walk more into this later, but we can convert donors for larger gifts. So if a donor comes in via DAF, the first time donor, you say, hey, that donor has a DAF. They're probably really serious about their giving. Let me consider them stewarding them as more of a major donor. Full DAF donor, gift processing, and then immediately acknowledge and say thank you, because you now have the ability to do that, because just when a donor submitted a DAF gift, as opposed to before when sometimes it would take weeks to actually see that a donor had given via donor advised fund. So this isn't Chariot's research. This is research done by the DAF Research Collaborative, but just a really interesting snapshot. So the DAF Research Collaborative, they asked them 2,100 DAF donors. They said, when do you not use your DAF? Do you ever not use it? And 88% of respondents said that, yeah, even though I have a donor advised funds, sometimes I give in another way, via credit card, check. And when they asked, okay, why would you not give with your DAF if you have? The reasons they gave were like spontaneity, events, time sensitivity, new organizations. And in my mind, in our mind, this is online giving, right? Like spontaneity, events, all of these are online giving. So DAFpay and having DAFpay on your For Good Cause forms, that's how you're going to reach these donors that have DAFs but previously weren't using them to support your organization. And one of the reasons why this is important, again, we said the vast majority of DAF gifts are not major gifts, just another kind of distribution. And DAF usage results in higher giving. Like when you take the same donor who donated via one method, so credit card, check 1 year, and DAF the next year, we found that the average increase in gift size between kind of the literally same donor, same organization, just different methods of giving was 10x. And the median was kind of 2 times the size. So we see that when donors kind of engage with your organization via DAF instead of via credit card or via check or cash, they'll give much higher gifts.
Talia, I'd love to just note also that when you meet donors where they are on your donation page, giving them the options that how they want to give. So if they have a DAF and they see that that's available right then and there, then they're naturally going to be drawn to complete that donation. You're going to get more conversions because just like when you give them Google Pay and Apple Pay and things they are used to using, if you are greeting a DAF type donor with that option, then you're going to get more conversions. That means more donations, and as you're talking about, that can lead to higher gift sizes and all the things that come with DAF. So.
Yeah, it's a great point. I totally agree. And I mean, even as a DAF donor myself, anytime I see DAFpay on a form, I'm like, oh my gosh, great, they're talking to me. And then just one other point on top of that, sometimes I think DAF donors forget they have DAFs in these kind of spontaneous moments. So my friend sent me a bike ride that he's participating in to raise money for cancer research. And I see it, and the bike ride's tomorrow. I'm like, oh, I totally want to donate. And I'm not thinking about my donor advised fund. If I see DAFpay on that form, it's like immediately stops me in my tracks. Oh, I'm going to use my DAF. And then ultimately, maybe I've converted to a higher gift. Maybe I'm now, that donor has, or that org has my information, etc. So yeah, totally agree. Meet donors where they're at. Make it as easy as they can to give in their favorite way. Another really interesting kind of takeaway from the DAF Fundraising Report was that DAF revenue is actually the fastest growing for small nonprofits, which was, I think, surprises a lot of orgs. It surprised kind of our team at Chariot. But yeah, compared to kind of medium, large, extra large, it's big for everyone. But as you can see, kind of that graph all the way on the right, it's grown from 2020 to 2024 in those 4 years by 143%. For smaller organizations. So again, not just for those big, huge orgs and donors. So now let's talk about, okay, we know DAFs are important, DAFs are relevant. What should I do to really engage my donor audience to maximize DAF donations? So one, the fact that it's on for a good cause. I mean, that already kind of unlocks all these possibilities in terms of strategy. So one, we want to make it easy. We want to support DAF giving everywhere. We want to steward DAF donors the same way we would steward any other donors. We want to remind DAF donors of the importance of their DAF, that they have it, and that it's just a great way to give. And then you want to make new DAF donors. That's DAF education, and that's education from your donor base and also of your fundraising team. You want everyone on your fundraising team to know what a DAF is, be able to talk about it with their donors, and be able to suggest it, not as a financial advisor, but just as a smart way to fundraise if that comes up in conversations with their donors. So yeah, we've seen this. We saw how easy the flow was from Ronald showed it to us, but supporting DAF giving everywhere, meeting donors where they're at, saying this is a good way to give. I'm going to give it to you as much as possible or show it as much as possible. That's number one. Stewarding your DAF donors. This is kind of a pictorial depiction of a fun case study that we did with the Michael J. Fox Foundation, which they integrated DAFpay a couple years back. And they had never really spoken to their DAF donors because they're often so hard to reach and kind of very disconnected by time. So the head of their planned giving said, you know what, I'm just going to shoot a one-off email to every donor that donates via DAFpay because now I can. I've never been able to do this. I've never known a DAF donor's information right after they gave. And she received a 50% response rate to her thank you email, which in her kind of was unheard of for her, but just a real testament to that DAF donors are not used to being stewarded by nonprofits. And now with DAFpay, we can. And then, yeah, again, doing that kind of stewarding DAF donors who might have given to you because they saw your organization on like Google or on an email or their friend showed it to them, stewarding them as DAF donors. You know these people are serious about their giving. You can kind of move them towards middle level giving or hopefully up. Third is just marketing and comms. Make sure to include in all of your marketing communications that giving via donor advised fund is an option. And have it on your website, have it if you send out a mailer, make sure you just, any place a donor can see or be arrested kind of in their thought, like, oh yeah, donor advised fund, I have that, let's do that. And that's kind of also why this integration with For a Good Cause is coming at such a perfect time because we're coming up on DAF Day, which as I said, it's a giving day just for donor advised fund. Donor advised funds, it's coming up on October 9th, 2025. And yeah, feel free to kind of scan that QR code if you want to find out more, but it's totally free to participate. We have a bunch of kind of ready marketable assets for your nonprofit. And it's just kind of a way to capture the general wave of excitement around donor advised funds and get involved. And then lastly, DAF education. As I said, I mean, I think about this actually mostly as education for your team rather than for donors. I think the donor side will come, but just make sure your entire, like all of your fundraisers are literate in donor advised funds, understand the growing impact they're having in the industry, understand how they advantage donors and how they advantage your organization, and just have kind of some of these stats at the top of their head. And then lastly, this is if you want kind of more stories, more stats, more testimonials of nonprofits, feel free to scan this QR code and download the DAF Fundraising Report from 2025. It's a yearly report. You can also fill out the interest form if you want to participate, but just shows you the whole kind of picture of nonprofit fundraising from the DAF perspective. Great. So that's all I have, but I'd love if anyone has any questions, please throw them in the chat, or Ronald, if you have anything you want to discuss more.
Yeah, and we got some questions during the registration as well. So Amanda has a question. Do you know of any great resources for educating corporate partners on DAF employer matching? Maybe this kind of goes into what kind of education is being done on the corporate side for people to have these types of programs that you guys have, and then to educate employees about the charitable aspects of DAFs and kind of what's going on the for-profit side that's going to help nonprofits, I guess.
Yeah, it's a great question, Amanda. And honestly, like a great kind of sector that maybe we should all go into. I would say we have like a bunch of blog posts and kind of webinars like this that articulate kind of the benefits of DAF giving in general. There's also, I'm not going to have the specific stats on the top of my head, but if you search it into Google, I'm sure you'll find Figma, which is kind of a graphic design company. They have a really successful kind of matching program for their employees with donor advised funds, and they just recently did kind of this big launch with DAFI, another kind of DAF provider. But I would say it's becoming more and more of a thing. I talk to kind of folks at corporations, and it's on their radar in terms of specific materials. I don't know, reach out, let's develop them together.
Yeah, let's work on some of that. That'd be great. Feel free to put any questions in the chat, guys. I'm going to kind of work off some of the things that were submitted. During the registration, we had some things submitted, questions there. Tell me a little bit about maybe the benefits of DAF Pay. I think this question kind of comes trying to think about the different ways that nonprofits have typically gotten DAF gifts. Can you, and it's like, sometimes they might get a grant from a community foundation or a DAF from a financial institution. How does that really differ from DAF Pay and the benefits there? Maybe what are the differences in costs and considerations for kind of getting DAFs the old way and maybe this new way?
Yeah, totally. I can totally speak about that. Thanks, Ronald. So before on a DAF Pay or any sort of DAF technology, the process was I, as a donor, I want to give to the Bruce Wayne Batman Foundation. I would look up Bruce Wayne Batman Foundation, EIN, employee identification number. I would hopefully find it. It might take me a while. Then I would go to fidelitycharitable.com, type in the EIN, and kind of submit a request that way. So I wouldn't be able to do anything from the Bruce Wayne Foundation's website. I would have to, except for find their EIN, I would then have to go to my DAF provider. What DAF Pay changed is said, okay, now I'm a donor and I'm not thinking about my donor advised fund, but I'm just going to go to the organization's website. I go to their donation form. I see DAF Pay. Without ever leaving that donation flow, I can give with my DAF. So it's this change of having to go through kind of 20 steps in 3 different portals to 4 steps on one portal. And if we're going to talk about cost, it's a really, I think it's something I think that's very interesting. But so there are because DAFpay is kind of like it's a payment processor the same way Google Pay or Apple Pay or one of those is, it does have kind of standard credit card fees. And I speak with a lot of nonprofits that are like, we already get donor advised funds this way and we don't have to pay any fees. Why should I use DAFpay and get fees? We think about DAFpay really as finding those DAF donors that otherwise wouldn't donate with their DAF. So if you have a segment of DAF donors that know very well, okay, I go to fidelitycharitable.com, I go to DallasJewishCommunityFoundation.com and I submit my gift, they're going to do that. They're probably not even on your donation form. They know how to give to your organization. But if you're talking about new DAF donors or new donors in general that are just going to your organization's kind of main giving form, those are the donors we're trying to capture. You're trying to stop them in their tracks, say, wait, give with your DAF. And now, boom, you've gotten a new DAF donor. You know you've identified a donor that's more serious about their giving, that gives giver gifts on average, et cetera. So that's kind of why, that's what DAFpay is, and kind of digital DAF giving in general is really turnkey for.
Yeah, you're trying to get to those, what'd you say, 60-something% that are those smaller donors that have it,
exactly.
Yeah. And like I say, meet donors where they are. Can you talk a little bit about the back end process? So, we went through that demo. It was very easy to make that gift. What happens to that gift from there? How does the disbursement work? How does the charity get paid from Fidelity or wherever that, provider is, if that donor went through DAFpay?
Yeah, that's a great question. So there are about like 1,200 donor advised fund providers, DAF providers in the U.S. And it differs slightly by like grouping of donor advised fund. So what will always happen is you'll always, as soon as a donor initiates a gift from their DAF, you'll receive kind of their name, their email, and the gift amount, et cetera, and then depending on the DAF provider, you'll receive the funds differently. So Fidelity, for example, most orgs, or your if you want, you can be set up with like direct ACH from Fidelity, in which case that's how you'd receive it. A bunch of, we have kind of a growing list of nonprofits actually use Chariot now as their disbursement arm. So if your donor gives through a DAF provider that uses Chariot, then you would receive an ACH straight from Chariot. Some DAF providers, unfortunately, still disperse via check. And in that case, which is like one of the pain points that we're working very hard to solve. But why, or how we kind of make the gift processing easier in that case, is that your DAFpay gift always has an alphanumeric tracking ID. And that tracking ID will be present whenever the gift kind of arrives at your organization. So whether it's ACH or check or any other method, it'll always have that tracking ID, so that you can then go match that tracking ID to the one in your For a Good Cause portal to make sure that you can reconcile those gifts effectively.
Yeah, absolutely. We will have a transaction ID on the For Good Cause side, but we do record, I think you guys call it like a grant ID or external.
Yeah, a grant ID.
Grant ID. So we do record that, and that can match up. What you talked about having you guys do the disbursements or that ACH payment, is that where like a For Good Cause client can basically claim a Chariot account? Is that really what the purpose of that Chariot account is for?
Yeah, pretty much. That's so if you do get a donor advised fund gift, you'll get probably an email that says like, hey, claim your Chariot account if you want to receive this gift via ACH and much faster. And then you'll do that, which is totally free of cost and not mandatory to use it on your For Good Cause forms, but another great option.
Yeah. Another question from the registration was kind of how to promote DAF giving kind of in a mass way. And I guess, I would think it's in the same way that you promote really any type of gift, because now this option is available on your donation page and it's there just like any other method. Or do you want to be more targeted and specific about saying we're looking for DAF donors? And do you broadcast that to your whole database? Do you segment? What are you seeing other nonprofits do?
Yeah, it's a great question. One that we have so much internally at Chariot, you would not believe. I'll say that, all the statistics show that at the end of the day, your DAF donor is just like any other donor. So the way you would steward any donor, you articulate your mission, you make it as easy as you can for them to donate, you give them opportunities to donate, you have kind of group giving opportunities, you have match giving, like all that stuff that would apply to any kind of donor applies to DAF donors as well. So that's what I'll say there. In terms of specific segmenting, I think it's always fun to try, you know. I have heard of kind of one-off campaigns that some nonprofits have done where they've segmented their communications and kind of A/B tested different kind of levels of donors and seen. I tend to think that the best thing to do is treat them like other donors, except donors that are really, really intentional about giving, and just know that in your communications.
Right. Yeah, I like that. And plus, if you've put that on your ways to give page, so I always talk to nonprofits that, okay, on your website, you need that donate button in the top right. That's going to go to your donation page. That's available everywhere. But you also have a section of your site called Support Us that can lead to like a ways to give page. And you're going to have donate online, send us a check, make a planned gift. And also, I think it's really smart to have a section on you can now make a donor advised fund gift, and here are the benefits for you to do that, and click here and you can do that online.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah, absolutely. This is a question we got during registration. Hopefully I'm going to understand this one. How can we avoid the soft credit recommendation for logging all DAF payments? I think maybe they're doing a soft credit maybe towards Fidelity, or is that am I on the right track there?
That's my guess. And maybe if the person who asked this question is here, they can
this was
clarify in the chat. But
this was Chelsea. I'm not sure if she's here.
But sometimes, there's a little bit of a kind of a confusing back and forth with the soft credit and the hard credit with the DAF donor versus the DAF provider. How we recommend to do it at Chariot is give the hard credit to the DAF provider, because that's the institution that's actually sending the money over to the nonprofit. So your CRM or your platform, have the hard credit go to the DAF donor, the DAF provider, and the soft credit go to the DAF donor, so that there's still an awareness and a recording of the fact that the DAF donor is the one who you should attribute any kind of formal thanks to. You should never send kind of Fidelity or Schwab or any of them. You'd be surprised, they get so many of them, and I think they're just like, oh my gosh. But so that's how we recommend to do it. And most of, I know, we've worked with like a bunch of kind of CRMs. A bunch of them will have kind of systems that will automate that hard soft credit, or at least at the very least, you can go in and make sure that DAF gifts aren't being automated to soft credit the DAF provider. Yeah.
I mean, in for good cause, they're going to go in just like they are any other donation. You're going to know exactly who to thank. That's the donor.
Yeah, it's exactly.
There. So
you're not going to say thank you, Fidelity.
We like to keep things really, really, really simple here. I think just one last question, really, what's kind of one thing, if you would want a nonprofit to kind of take from this presentation, or one thing you want them to do as kind of a next step in their organization, thinking about DAFs and DAF giving?
That's a great question. My mind goes to an anecdote. I was just talking to a nonprofit, and it was the end of our call, and she's like, Talia, last year you told me to do something about DAF Day, and I didn't really think that I would get anything from it. And then it's a small school from Wisconsin. She's like, I sent out one email about DAF Day, and I ended up getting 7 donations totaling to 18K. And it was huge. And I never thought, and it came from one email. So I think just try, just lean into it. This is really such a great avenue to get more donations and engage more really dedicated donors. So just get started. It's not too late, truly.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. I mean, when we rolled this out on For a Good Cause, it's available. It's there. It's on your page. It's ready to roll. Just try it out. Give it a chance. I think it can get some really nice results for you and increase your donations overall. So thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you, Ronald.
Thank you for bringing your expertise and smile and positive attitude to. It's been a joy working with Chariot, and we really like your product and hope it's going to bring a lot of dividends to our clientele. We're very excited about it.
Likewise.
Yeah, thanks for everybody for being here. As I say, I'll get this recording out by Monday at the latest, I believe. And Amanda just dropped a nice resource there before you go. And we'll have all this kind of a recap up on our blog and such, with links to a lot of resources from Chariot and from us as well. Thanks again for being here. Talia, thanks to you.
Yeah, thanks everyone.
We'll see everybody next time. Thanks, everybody. Bye.